Good evening. Welcome to the Southbridge School Committee meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, March 24th, 2015. Please rise and join the school committee in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Congdon?
Present.
Mr. Olivo?
Present.
Dr. Page?
Present.
Mrs. Donovan?
Present.
Mrs. Quinney?
Present.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Present.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Present.
All present?
Thank you. This is public input. Is there anybody from the community who would like to address the school committee at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move to agenda item number 4, which is approval of the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda items include the meeting minutes from the school committee meeting on March 10th, 2015. The third readings of policies BEDF, BGE, BAG, BIBA, and BJ. This is the third reading and adoption of those policies. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? If there are no objections from the committee, the consent agenda will be adopted as written. Seeing none, those policies are hereby adopted, and the meeting minutes of March 10th, 2015 are approved. Chairperson's announcements. The superintendent will present the school department budget to the Education and Human Services Subcommittee of the Town Council on Wednesday, April 1st at 6 o'clock p.m. This is a public meeting. The meeting will take place here at Town Hall. I don't have confirmation of the room yet, but that agenda for this meeting will be posted on the town website, I believe, by the end of the week. So please look for that. There will be an informational meeting on building a special education parent advisory council on Wednesday, I have the wrong date.
April 8th.
April 8th, thank you. From 6 to 7 p.m. in room M100, 25 Cole Avenue. This will be presented by the Massachusetts Parent Advisory Council Coordinator. She's coming from Boston to do this presentation. For more information, please contact Elizabeth Scanlon at 508-764-5414, extension 417. And finally, there's a reminder that there's no school on Friday, April 3rd. That's the Good Friday observation. This evening, we have a couple of presentations. I'll turn it over to the superintendent to introduce the presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce Mr. William Latoy, who is still principal at Charlton Street School, and thank you to him and his staff as they present their school spotlight this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm joined up here tonight by Mrs. Emily Mantinio, Mrs. Lisa Giardello, and Ms. Kate Potter, our assistant principal. We have Mrs. Andy Cropley with us and Mrs. Beth Champney as well, second grade teachers. So we tried to put together a pretty in-depth presentation for you. Same basic slideshow as the other presentations. So the strategic objectives are the same from our AIP. Then working off our AIP, we went into our school improvement plan. The first objective on our school improvement plan is to develop, refine, and implement curricula for all K through 12 core subjects and instructional practices aligned to the Common Core and WIDA standards. One thing we're doing in this is really working on the content of the lessons that we're preparing and looking at the unit plans, looking at the unpacking the standards, and working to make sure that we're addressing all of the Common Core standards. One of the evaluation measures for this are the MCAS, WIDA, DIBELS, STAR, and the Achievement Network interim assessments. Professional development we've used for this throughout the year has been our district professional development days, faculty meetings, focus on results, professional development, and our instructional leadership team meetings and National Geographic training. So one of the core ways that we've been doing this year is through our instructional focus, and the instructional focus this year at Charlton Street School has been reading comprehension. This was begun last year. This year we really have focused in on few main areas of this. Everywhere in the building, you'll see child-friendly posters like this that are easy for students to understand and read, and the teachers go over this with the students as well. The instructional focus, I will predict what I'm learning about. I will ask questions to help learn. I will clarify things that I don't understand, and I will summarize what I've learned. Underneath that, you'll see that we've added 4 arrows there. There's 4 areas of best practices that we're focusing on. Fluency, our lesson plans, vocabulary development, and direct strategy instruction. The fluency was begun last year through repeated readings and close reading. Vocabulary development was started last year with content and vocabulary word walls. Direct strategy instruction was through reciprocal teaching, and this year we've added lesson planning onto that. And you'll see in the next couple slides what the teachers did at each grade level was they made these FRAIR models, and on the FRAIR models they developed what it looks like for the teacher, what it looks like for the student, what it looks like in every classroom, and what it's not. So they've done this for the repeated readings, for vocabulary, for close reading, and what we added this year, another one was checks for understanding. So we felt that a big piece of what was missing was actually checking in to find out what the students were learning and if they were actually grasping what was being taught. So part of the checks for understanding started with each team, grade level, I know that's kind of small, but you have it in your packets as well, went through and they developed a list of different checks for understanding they could use in their classroom. And we asked each team to adopt 2 that they would use on a regular basis so that when we're going into the classrooms, we can then check and see that those are being used on a regular basis. So through our walkthroughs, our observations, through checking lesson plans, that we're looking for these. And we gave the teams the freedom to choose which ones they wanted to start with, and now we've been adding a couple more on as the year goes on. Some of the initiatives that go along with this were the common language requirements in the plan books. We adopted, well, actually the CIAD is what we call it. It's been adopted probably for several years here in the district, but we've really emphasized it this year, and we've asked all teachers to use it with fidelity, and they've all really adopted it and have been doing it. So the C is for curriculum, the I is for the instruction, the A is for the assessment, including the checks for understandings there, and the D is for differentiation. So every teacher has that. When we go into Plan Book online, we can see that. When we're sitting in the classrooms, we can reference that. The implementation of the National Geographic Reading Program was done with fidelity. It's being used at every classroom. It's being used in our special ed classrooms, and it's being used in our ELL program as well. The continuation of My Math, which they began last year, all the units have been developed, the plans have been developed, and this year is just a continuation of that, and really focusing in and tweaking some things that needed to be tweaked, and then moving forward. And our response to interventions groups, RTI groups, where every student is looked at individually and placed into a group where they will gain the most help and the most support, and takes place during 1 grade level time per grade each day, and every student receives that. Our ELL program, this year we really focused on boosting our ELL program, hiring of Araceli Escueda, who's the IRS for the ELL program on the district level. She has worked with us amazing to get a lot of these things in place this year for the ELL program. The ELL IRS and Literacy IRS meet weekly to check on where the students are at, what level they're at, what kind of instruction they're receiving. We reviewed the records of all students that are currently identified as ELLs, established protocols to correctly identify the ELL students, the administration of the WAP test immediately upon entrance to the school, and anybody that hadn't done that. So if there's a student that transfers in now that needs to take that, we give it to them right away. The redesigned ELL program instructional delivery, we've redone the whole classroom. It's center-based. There's a lot of technology happening. There's a lot of great interaction that takes place in that classroom. The first graders receive an additional 40 minutes of ELL and math support per day. And the WIDA 3 through 5 level students receive ELL inclusion support for 30 minutes a day. A majority of the staff, including myself, have taken the Sheltered English Immersion class or training through the state and are gaining our endorsement for that. And the next steps for us as a leadership team is striving to improve the instruction through our learning walks, peer observations, and sharing best practices so that we can see what's going on in the classrooms. So our objective 2 is to expand and embed the use of data K through 12 to foster a cycle of continuous improvement aimed at assessing and improving instructional practices throughout the district. Something that's important here is looking at the data K through 12 so that when the students are coming up from kindergarten to us, we're looking at that data and we're placing them properly, seeing what services they need, seeing what we need to offer, and then when we're sending students on from 5th grade to 6th grade, that we're doing the same thing, that we're using that data, we're passing on the information, and we're communicating as a district. Our objective here is to establish a consistent school-wide process that uses a range of data to inform decisions at all levels. Again, the evaluation measures are MCAS, WIDA, DIBEL, STAR, Achievement Network, and the interim assessment data. Here we get into some of the data from the school and some of the assessments that we've done so far. As with the other schools, we've seen some great improvements, we've seen some improvements, and we've seen some standstills or maybe a little backwards momentum in a couple areas. It's hard to tell because with all the snow days that we had, the A3 assessments were given right after that, so there wasn't a lot of instruction time to give those A3 assessments, but we felt it was important to give the A3 assessments when we did so that we could gauge where the students were and what support they needed moving forward before we got to MCAS time, so that we could still continue to do the remediation or any of the intervention that we needed to do. So we kind of stayed on track with the assessments, even though we had lost a good probably 2 weeks of instruction time on the calendar with the days out, the half days, and all the schedule changes. Here you can see some of the DIBELS data, and what the IRS have done here is break it down so that it's for general ed students, special ed students, and then ELL students, and where they fall into those categories. This chart shows our STAR reading growth, and each one of those dots represents a classroom, and if you look at where they are on the continuum, it represents whether they've made significant growth, whether they've made growth, or low achievement. And this is comparing the first STAR testing to the second STAR testing. This is an interactive chart that when we use it online, we can scroll over it and we can see the exact classroom, and it shows the students and things like that. So there's a lot of information contained in these charts that unfortunately we can't show here, but that we use every day. These charts just show the STAR reading, and they're showing the green, the blue, the yellow, and the red standing for whether the student's on target, whether they're lower on target, whether they're on watch, or whether they're on warning. And there's grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5. And again, this has stayed pretty consistent through the year. And it's kind of hard to judge where the students are going to be from a lot of this data because we didn't have this data last year. So there's no way to tell really what it's going to do for MCAS. We're told that some of this data is a good MCAS predictor, but we won't really know until we look at it and we can judge for ourselves next year and see where the students fell and what was happening. ANet's another example of the data that we're using. You can see that both those charts, that's for us and for the cohort, and it's pretty even throughout the testing and throughout the assessments that we've done this year. And that's pretty much what we've seen in past years as well. There too, it's hard to tell because we're just basing that on other networks, other people taking the test. We've had this conversation, you've had this conversation, so again, it's ANet, and we take it for what it's worth, but it is another source of data. It's there, so we're trying to use it to the best we can. This shows the cumulative performance for ANet for math, and as you can see, the green is what's predicted for proficient, the yellow is predicted for needs improvement, the red is for warning, and there's actually 2 shades of red in there. If you see, there's a darker red and a lighter red. So that's predicting a low warning or a high warning category in there. Again, a predictor, but we're not sure as to exactly how much it's going to be a predictor or what. Each grade level is listed on the bottom there so you can see with the grade levels. It's the same thing for ELA. You see the numbers there. It doesn't really show us anything different than what we kind of know, where the strengths are, where we need improvement in the schools, but it does help us. We take this information, we take this data, we use it at team meetings, we use it with the teachers. We have a collaboration time every afternoon, 3 days a week, where the teachers meet as teams. We use this data to drive the instruction, the planning that we do moving forward. These are a couple charts that we put in here to show you that this is what we did this is our present grade 4 students. This is where they landed for their MCAS scores, whether they were advanced, proficient, needs improvement, or in the warning category. And what we did was, again, I give all the credit to the IRS. They made these posters and they sat with each individual student and they showed the student where they are on the chart and where they came in with their score, and for the first time I think explained to them what the score was and what that meant and what they could do moving forward. So we had what was called the first annual Goal Bowl for Charlton Street School, where they sat and went over the scores with each student that had taken the MCAS last year, where they scored, what they thought they could maybe do this year. So if they scored a 236 or a 238, that maybe they could get a 240, what it would look like to do that, maybe answer one more question, maybe try to read the sentences or the questions. Could they do some more reading at home? Are they doing reading at home? What are they doing for assignments? So we looked at that as well. And then what they did was they created, there's the charts here for grade 5 as well. We have data walls which show all of that information, which I'll go back to in a minute. But what the students did was they created a little football with their goal on it. And they put the number on there of the score that they wanted to do. Their names weren't on there, but their score was on there, and a little paragraph about what they were going to do better on the test. And we put that up on the wall as just a way to make them a little bit more aware of their goals and setting the goals. We had an MCAS rally the other day. We had shirts made up this year, and they were, we had them for all staff, so that on the first day of MCAS, we're all going to wear the shirts with the 240 on them, just to try to get the students aware of that there is an actual goal out there, what that means. We talked especially to the 4th and 5th graders, a little bit to the 3rd graders, about what that means when you're up in the higher grade levels, how the MCAS is used for placement, how when you get into high school, it's used for graduation, and as well scholarships, and what that can mean. So to start taking that seriously now, and it could be a way for some of them to get into college that maybe they don't have any other way to get there. So we started those conversations with them now and moved forward with them. The data walls that we have up around the school, you'll see bulletin boards outside of all the classrooms, and they chart the students' progress. The students actually take part in that. They'll go out, whether it be for their multiplication charts, whether it be for their plus ones for math, for 2nd grade or something like that. They have all of the bulletin boards there. The top slide is one of the bulletin boards that we have in the IRS office, where we've placed the students exactly where they fall on the continuum for proficient needs improvement. And what we did was, if there were students on the cusp, we took those students, we put a card on there with their picture on there so that it's evident that it's an actual student, and how are we going to get that student over that threshold? How are we going to get that student from where they are to where they need to be? And if they were on the other side of that threshold, what do we need to do to keep them there so that they don't fall backwards at all? So that's what that top one represents. We did that or they did that for ELA and for math. And again, I think it was one of those initiatives that when we first talked about it was, seemed like a lot of work, and we weren't sure how beneficial it was going to be. But being able to look at that wall and see where those students are and being able to follow that has turned out to be really beneficial. After our visit to Worcester, when we went on our visit to Worcester with Focus on Results, we came back really re-energized and recharged with a lot of ideas that we had seen. A lot of their initiatives revolved around grants that they've received, extra funding they received for extended day, that sort of thing. But we were able to bring some things back that we could do right away, like that collaboration time in the afternoon. And so we were able to implement that right away. It was a no cost to us. It was a no-brainer. Teachers are there till 3:30 every day, so we decided, you know what, we're going to use that time from 2:45 to 3:30. We're going to get the teachers all together in the library, sitting by grade levels, and they're going to do this. They're going to collaborate. They're going to work on their plans. If you look in the middle of the page there, there's the 240 Club. What that is that's all the students that have scored 240 or higher on the MCAS. And that was one of the things they had at Union Hill that we really were impressed with as a way to show the students about their achievement and maybe get them to try again for this year. So we started that 240 Club, we've talked it up with them, and hopefully we'll have even more students to put up on that wall for next year. Our objective 3 is to improve educator quality and ability to implement rigorous and engaging instruction, implement the educator evaluation system with fidelity, to develop administrator and teacher capacity, to become effective leaders in implementing curriculum and instructional practices that meet the needs of all students. This comes right out of our focus for Southbridge, where we talk about it being in every classroom for every student every day, and that's what this comes down to, is we want to see the initiatives, we want to see the lesson planning, we want to see the instruction in every classroom every day that's going to take these kids over the threshold where they need to be, and hopefully set them up for success in future years in school. So evaluation for this is focused observations. We do a minimum of 5 a week to monitor implementation of the district's instructional expectations per the Southbridge standard. Administrators submit copies of observations to the Directing of Teaching and Learning, and we have conversations with the superintendent. And something that we've started to do now is our co-walkthroughs and really getting into the classrooms and focusing on what we're seeing for instruction. Ms. Potter and I are up to date on all of our required educator evaluation processes. Brett Bishop's help and guidance through the Eyes on Excellence. We talk about all of what the best practices look like, what they need to be. We bring that back to our instructional leaders, and then we bring it out to the staff as well. So with this, our focus on reading comprehension, these are all of the practices that we do in the classrooms that we want to see every day, things that the must-sees that we have. I send a weekly memo out to the staff. I'll usually pick 2 or 3 a week where we say, this is what we talked about at our training, this is what we're looking for. I'd really like to see the vocabulary practices this week. We'd really like to see the checks for understanding or the close reading, things like that. So we really focus, we pick a couple and we focus in on them. Our professional development days have been, October was National Geographic, November was Best Practices, Checks for Understanding, December was the SEI strategies to address the ELL action plans, 7-step vocabulary sequencing. January was the highlight slideshow of going to Union Hill visit, MCAS strategies, writing rubrics, and then the implementation of collaboration meetings. March, we started really focusing in, looking at student work. In ELA and math, and actionable trends that we could see and how we can use that. So all staff are assigned to teams. The instructional leadership team and the grade level teams and the interventionist teams, they all meet once a week, but our collaboration is 3 times a week, and what we've done is for Mondays and Tuesdays, or Tuesdays and Wednesdays, whichever day of the week it falls on, for the first 2 days, we focus in on lesson planning and looking at our units and the standards and developing good lessons. And on the 3rd day a week, we've now focused in on looking at student work and using student work protocols, so that we're actually bringing, every team brings their student work to the meeting, and they look at it that way, and they identify it, they look at what the trends are and how they can do better. Our objective 4 is increased parent and community involvement. It's increased the participation of families in their children's education and improve parent community communication and involvement, provide multiple and varied forms of information. One way to measure this will be at the end of the year through surveys. Another way is to look at the increased involvement we've had. We have seen an increase in involvement this year. Our programs have been very well attended. We take advantage of those programs to hand out literature on how parents can help their students, what they can do at home, ways to support their students. One of the things this past month, we did our parent luncheon last week, and I spoke at every luncheon to the parents about the importance of attendance at school, because we are seeing a decline in attendance on a daily basis. It's not where we'd like it to be, and we talked to parents about the importance of having the students in school, what it means if they miss a day, that they're not getting that same instruction that's taking place in the classroom. They're not getting the hands-on. They're not getting that group work. They're not getting the feeling for what's happening. Worksheets and readings can't replace that when they're doing it at home. So we talked to them about that. I did my weekly message to parents about that on Friday night. We put that in our newsletter. We send a newsletter home once a month, and we're really focusing on trying to build that up and get parents to realize the importance of sending the kids to school. Our family liaison is instrumental in this. We've done food drives, clothing drives with the community members. Shot Fiber Optics has been a major partner of ours again this year. They come in and they read to the students. They participate with the students as well in group work, things like that. They've given us lots of material and supplies for the school. They've been a major help this year with all of that. This here just shows that up to this date we have had approximately 40 volunteers with probably more volunteer hours than that, which is a lot more than we had last year. The October Family Literacy Night was well attended. We're planning a Showcase Your Hobby Night, again, to get parents and families in the door, and to just really, we want to create the feeling of a community school. We want parents and the students to feel like they belong. We want them to feel like school is not just a place where they're coming to learn, but it's a place where they belong and where it's safe and they can really thrive there. Our holiday concert was really well attended. Our monthly parent lunches have about 150 parents that attend those as well. Our newsletters go out, and what we're in the process of doing right now with the help of Michael Montigny was we came up with the idea for a community MCAS video. I don't know if he's hit the school committee up yet, but he will be for your participation in that. What we did was we went to we contacted a lot of the local businesses in town and asked them if they would help by just holding up a sign, letting the students know they support them, letting them know that they believe in them, letting them know that, you know, take your time on the MCAS, let's see you do well, your education is important to us. So that's a major outreach that we've just started, and we're hoping this will just be the tip of the iceberg with getting the community involved, and that we can then go from there. That video is going to be online within the next couple days, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a real turnaround point for community involvement and positive community interaction as well. Just a few pictures of our partnership with SHOT, our Spirit Days and family lunches, what our family literacy and math night looked like, our Veterans Day assembly, our open house, our holiday concert, and one of the last goals that we put in here is our social and emotional goal in our AIP. And we felt it was important to have a social and emotional goal with the addition of the assistant principal this year and with a lot of the behaviors and trauma-sensitive students that we're seeing coming into our school. This is something that we're working really hard on so that we can create the environment to sustain learning. So it's to improve student attendance, reduce behavioral incidents for all students by providing student support and intervention as needed, developing procedures to ensure the safety of students, and maintain a safe environment conducive to learning. Through this, we're decreasing the disciplinary referrals to the office, increasing desired student behavior and attendance. The programs and techniques used to address behavior, safety issues, and attendance. We have our Peace Builders program. Some of the teachers have been trained in responsive classroom techniques, PBIS, and our student-based study team. The contributions of the assistant principal in this, Ms. Potter's been instrumental in holding families with meetings, visiting homes, when needed, involving juvenile services or family services to make sure that students are getting what they need. proactive and positive communication with families, including telephone calls, written correspondence, implementation of our morning walking circle. Instead, the students come in to have breakfast, and then afterwards, instead of sitting for 20 minutes, she started a walking circle in the gym where the students are actually walking, and it's getting them motivated in a structured way on the cold days where they are not just sitting there, and then when it's time to go to class, they've got some of that energy out already, and they're ready to come to class and learn. Creating a therapeutic environment to facilitate learning by providing support structures with the appropriate personnel, including parental involvement and wraparound services. We've really tried this year to work with wraparound services and outside counseling groups and the hospital and just getting the services that the students need. We have morning check-in and afternoon check-out with students that are at risk, students that might have been having behavior problems or having emotional issues at school. Daily behavior charts completed by the teaching staff that are received by myself or Ms. Potter in the office. Then they're sent home to parents for signatures, just providing a little extra behavioral support. And like I said, the home visits are a big part of what we're really working on now with the social worker and trying to get our absentee back in check. Positive behavior intervention and support program has been big in the district. We really tried to expand on that this year. It really focuses on positive techniques for rewarding good behavior. We've developed posters and we had them made up this year so that you see them everywhere in the school the students go. They're in the classroom, they're in the hallways, they're in the cafeteria, they're in the bathroom. Everywhere the students go, there's posters there, and it talks about what it looks like to be respectful, responsible, and ready to learn. The staff has been working really hard this year. As I said, we're not seeing the gains that we'd like to see through some of this data, but I think that we've seen some gains, some good gains. We've seen some positive reinforcement as far as the information that we're using, and we're hoping, through all the hard work of the staff and getting the families involved, that it will start to pay off. When we went to Union Hill, one of the first things that they talked about was their first year, it was really a restructuring year. Once they got everything in place and they had the staff in place that they needed to. They talked about the stability being a big part of that in the school district, in the school itself, to create an environment that fostered that security for students. And getting that behavior and emotional support in place. And that's really what we've tried to do this year, is to try to build upon that. And then once that's in check and we're not always being called out because of the behavior issues and they're not disrupting the classrooms, we can finally start focusing on learning and what's happening in the classroom. So with that, I thank you for your support, and we can answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Latoy. Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Latoy? Anybody? Mrs. Quinney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Latoy. I just have to find my questions. The first one that I think speaks volumes to me is the ANet that you shared with us, especially in math. I know I asked this of Mr. Regan as well. I know we've done ANet for quite a few years now, although I am not at all a fan of ANet for a multitude of reasons that I have expounded repeatedly. Having cohort information, I think, would be advantageous. So third grade, we're at over 70% proficient according to ANet. And then fourth grade, we go down to 44, and then fifth grade to 33. So my question would be, do we have data to say that the current fourth grade class last year was lower than 44? Is that cohort improving, or is that cohort
Unfortunately,
not?
we tried to get that data, and there's no way to do it with ANet. That's one of the downfalls of ANet, is there's no way, I'm sorry, but we've worked on this. We really did work on this. We worked real hard last week trying to find a way to do that. And if now that this data has been saved, if we were going to do that next year, I've saved hard copies of this, and we're creating our own records for this, and we're creating data charts, and we're creating a real database of what we have for information right now. And that information is going to stay, and that's going to be able to be used. But not knowing that, and then going with ANet and then asking them, where's this information, there was no way to pull that up for this year.
Yet another reason that I am not a fan of ANet. And you spoke quite a bit about star reading. can you explain the star reading program a little bit? Because this is the first we've really heard of it being utilized.
Well, I think to answer that correctly, one of the things is what we did this year was we took one of our RTI, our response to intervention teachers, in blocks. The students go to their intervention 5 days a week. And what we did was one of those days a week, we started having them flow through the computer lab with one of the intervention specialists, so that every student in the school is exposed to technology and computers once a week, so that they're learning to log on, they're learning to get on to the school website, they're finding links to the helpful websites that are on the school website, and that's something that Mrs. Pratt's been doing with them. And Star Reading, we actually fit right into that rotation, so that we were able to use it from the beginning of the year during that time. So the students log on, and it's another assessment method where when the students log on, they go in, there's reading passages, they answer multiple choice questions on there, and then they're done. It's a pretty quick assessment method, and she can do it usually within that RTI block with the students. But I think, there too, as we're finding with other assessments and things like that, unfortunately, it's not so reliable, because students do learn that if they just click on the wrong answer sometimes or things like that, that it might just, they can go through very quickly or things like that. Star Reading's a little different with that, as I believe it does track them and it does move them based on the answers that they're getting. So that when they put an answer in, it then takes them to another level and moves them to different directions. So students could start with the same question, but based on the responses they're given, they're going to go in different directions, and then it's going to give the feedback that way.
And there's a timer, so Darcy can redirect them if they've gone through too quickly?
She can watch, and thank you, yeah. So she can watch and see that if they're doing it in too quick amount of time, she can go through and say, there's no way that you just answered 10 questions in 3 seconds, or 3 minutes or something like that. And then say, you might want to go back and recheck your answers or take your time.
And you had mentioned that the first 2 days you're working on lesson planning for the week in your time together, and then you said that the third day was student work, and you went through student work protocols. What is a student work protocol?
So what we did was, there's lots of protocols out there. There's protocols Desi has protocols to share with us. There's, there's lots of professional learning community protocols. So there's ways of looking at the student work, and the protocol is just an outlined description of how to look at the student work in the best way. What we did with our focus on results time with Brett Bishop this past week was look at a protocol for looking at student work. So actually take the student work. There's a list there that says how every group is going to look at that work. It's an actual chart, and it lists step by step what you do to look at that student work, so that everybody's looking at it the same way, and so that you're all looking at it with the same lens. And then it makes it more realistic, so that when you're done, you do that. ANet came down and they did provide a training for us on looking at student work as well, because writing is a piece of ANet that's in there. It's not scored by them electronically, because it's a handwritten sample, and it's something the teachers do on their own in the classroom, and then they score it on their own. So we took that as well, and we devoted one of our collaboration meetings and one of our professional development days to actually looking at the student work and looking at the student writing in math and what that looked like and how to go step by step through that.
Okay, thank you. The other question that I had was regarding the goals, social emotional goal. Your evaluation measure is to decrease disciplinary referrals and increase desired student behavior and attendance. My question and concern, I guess, at the same time, is with the decrease of disciplinary referrals. Has that been an expectation that we're going to decrease disciplinary referrals, therefore children that are having issues are staying in classrooms in order to decrease disciplinary referrals? Or is the target actually that the need for disciplinary referrals is decreasing?
Well, obviously, if a student's in need of being referred for discipline, we're not telling the teachers not to refer them for discipline. So if the actual need for the referral, the actual behavior requiring the referrals is decreasing. We've seen a big decline, actually. And part of that is because Ms. Potter and myself really spend a lot of times out in the classrooms, out in the hallways. She's in the lunchroom. She's on the playground. She's, the kids are seeing us all over. So that, and what we've done is we've really targeted interventions at the students that were having so much difficulty and spending so much time out of the classroom. What we've really started to do is target the interventions. How are we going to fix this? What are we going to do for this? We've had the parents in. We've contacted wraparound services. If we've had to, we've filed 51As. We've contacted DCF when need be, so that we're getting all of the services that these students need. It's more like we talked about in here. It's therapeutic. It's creating a therapeutic environment. A lot of the students are coming to school with a lot of trauma. They've witnessed a lot of trauma at a young age. It's really heartbreaking a lot of times to see what these students have been through and to listen to what they've been through. And after doing that, you kind of have to rethink. It's not disciplinary, and that's the first thing we'll tell parents is it's not disciplinary. One of the things that I think we forgot to put in here was our buddy program. And, the buddy stands for Believe You Deserve a Dynamic Year. And what happened at the beginning of the year is Michelle Driscoll, our guidance counselor, identified probably 50 students or 60 students that we knew were in need of a lot of support and that had had a rough year in the past couple of years. And we made a list. And the staff members all went through and they kind of adopted students off of that list. And they check in with them on a regular basis. They might have lunch with them. They might provide things. Michelle goes out and makes little care packages so that on St. Patrick's Day or on Valentine's Day or on other days, there's a little pencil and just a little something to let those students know that somebody cares about them and somebody's thinking about them. All of the staff has students so that when there is an issue that comes up, Ms. Potter or myself might call on Mrs. Jardello or, on somebody else and say, geez, it's your buddy that's having a tough time. Do you want to try to talk to him? And we might send him down there and try to redirect him, get him on track. And it could be something as simple as maybe sitting in her office with her for 15, 20 minutes and doing work with her and then being able to send him back to class. And through that, a lot of times we find out what the root cause of that behavior is and then how we can solve that.
Thank you. And you said it's obviously. I don't think that that's necessarily obvious. I think that there are some mandates that we are going to decrease this, therefore do not send. So I just wanted to...
And I apologize, and that, to me, it's
Yes.
obvious, and I think to
concur.
our staff, it's obvious. They know that if they need help, if they need something,
Right.
That's the first thing. And a lot of times, they don't even have to call us, because with us walking through the classrooms, if there's something going on, we're right there, and it's like, is that a good choice, or something like that. So I do apologize for using that word.
No need to apologize. I just want to ensure that teachers are getting the support that they need with children that are challenging, and children that are challenging are getting the support that they need in order to learn. So that was my point in asking that. And on that same vein, what are the wraparound services that we're currently accessing? And what do we have a need in the community to be able to access?
So, there's U-Inc., there's Harrington Psych Services, there's outside counselors who are coming in and providing counseling. When I first started, one of the questions I had, like if a student was in crisis or something, well, have they seen a counselor? Well, no, and that's one of the first conversations we have with a parent once we deem that there might be a need for that. And we actually filled up the plate of, I think, 3 counselors right off the bat, now we've contacted a couple more to get them to come in. U-Inc. has, of course, complete wraparound services where they have a lot of services right there. Harrington has a lot of services where once the child is seeing a counselor from Harrington, that they can get them and they can get them the services they need within there as well. So those are a lot of the services. We're really working hard on that end of it, and I think as a district, that's something in a community like this that really should have been in place a long time ago and wasn't, and that as an administration we're really working hard on now to put that in place because of the trauma sensitivity. I mean, when you're sitting with students, like I said, and you're hearing some of the things that they're witnessing, and they're moving from house to house every day, they're fleeing their mother's boyfriend or things like that. And there's all sorts of cases that happen every day. And, you know, it's up to us to try to find what services we can pinpoint for them and what we can do. We've utilized Kara White, our school psychologist, and given her a checklist of several students every day who she's checking in and out with on a regular basis. Sometimes it's crisis management. Sometimes it's referring them for risk assessment. Sometimes it's sending them to just make sure that they're going to be safe and things like that. It's not always the most popular decision, and I think that's why maybe some of it hadn't been done, but when you're doing it in the best interest of the students, you just have to do it.
Excellent. And has there been any challenges with access? Have families or has the school had difficulty in accessing those wraparound services that are needed?
Somewhat. Ms. Potter can speak a little bit to that for you.
Yeah, that's a perfect question. I'm so glad you asked, because our students, our clinicians that come to us within the school, and they do the therapies within the school, they're loaded up, they're full. And we got another person that came to the school, he's loaded up full. And all of the mental health agencies around, the kids are on waiting lists. So if there's any way we can get it out to the community, we need more child therapists to come in and help our children. It's ground level, difficult stuff. I mean, our kids have gone through and continue to go on a daily basis through some very, very difficult stuff. But yes, if we can make it a real wide-based community service, that would be great, because our kids are on waiting lists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody down here have questions? Mrs. Donovan, you had a quick
Thank
question?
you very much. Thank you, Mr. Latoy and Ms. G and Ms. Potter and Ms. Mantinio and the faculty out there. Thank you all for coming. Just a couple quick questions. Your slide on repeated readings. I just didn't know if you could just explain to me what choral reading and echo reading is. I wasn't familiar with those two strategies that the teachers will be doing for repeated readings. If you could just explain what those two strategies are.
Yep, and I can let Ms. Jardello talk about that specifically, but one of the things that we've done as well, and she can actually talk about this, is we've asked the teachers to actually bring us what they were doing for repeated reading in their classrooms, to check in on where we are and how we were doing with that to our team meetings, and then discuss who's doing what, who's using what it looks like as a check-in for that. So I can let her speak to that for a few minutes, because she's working with the staff.
Repeated readings are used for fluency, and there's a lot of different ways to do repeated readings, so every time you do a repeated reading, you kind of want to introduce it in a different manner. Excuse me. So an echo reading, maybe the teacher reads it and the children echo back after her or him. Choral reading would be the boys read together or a group of children read together, and then somebody else picks up from there and takes the next part of it. So it's reading together for fluency. As the teachers can attest to, that they do that daily. They find some way to have that repeated reading in every part of their literacy block and to make it engaging. So kids aren't saying, we're reading the same thing again, because they don't really understand that to build fluency, you do have to read the same material over and over so that, it flows correctly.
Excellent. So that's very dynamic reading. Okay, glad to hear that. Thank you. Another thing relative to your vocabulary slide, a lot of the things that the teachers will do, there's an abbreviation KTL, Step 1, and I didn't know what that stood for, Step 2. There's a Step 3, Step 4, Step 5. It's under the teacher will, under your vocabulary slide. Page 7.
Want to know and what they've used.
Oh, on this one.
Oh, is that what it is? Is it keys to literacy, perhaps?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, sorry about that. And definition of an anchor chart, I've heard that tossed around a lot with learning walks and things like that. What is contained in an anchor chart in a classroom?
Anchor charts can be used for several different subjects, different charts. It's anything that we're putting up there as a reference for what the students are learning at the time. So It could be an anchor chart for the close reading. So like that close reading that we put up there could be for that. It could be in math. It could be something as simple as conversions or, working with decimals or something. But it's just the teachers create a chart and they leave it off to the side so they can be referred to later on.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned close reading. I know Mr. Regan is here when he gave his presentation to us a couple weeks ago. He had his chart for close reading with all the symbols that the kids are learning. Are you using that same technique at Charlton Street as well?
That's a piece of literacy.
Yep, that's
Okay.
part of that as well.
Okay, thank you. When you talked about your lesson plans, my question was, what is the frequency that those lessons plans get reviewed by the principal? Is it basically those that are online on Plan Book, and then you're reviewing them there? And then in addition to that, they're being reviewed in collaboration, those meetings that you mentioned 3 times a week?
Yeah, so every teacher has their lesson plans online, so that even if they're doing them by hand, they have to have them submitted so that they're available online.
Yep.
When we go through our walkthroughs, when we're going through our walkthroughs, when we're going into the classrooms, we're looking at those lesson plans to make sure that they're aligned to the curriculum, making sure they're aligned to the standards. And then we try to take time to go through, and the IRS sometimes will go through those, and they'll look through those as well, looking at the lesson plans, looking to see what's in there, looking to make sure they're complete. When we meet as teams, that's another time where when they're making those lesson plans, that's one of the things they're doing right now is really working more on the unit planning and the actual standards to units, and then from there, that'll be breaking it down to get into the actual lesson planning. That would be the next step.
That's where I was getting confused. With those collaboration meetings, you're establishing the unit plans, and then, but each teacher still has their own professional way of teaching the standard, and then the unit test.
Correct.
Unit teaching, okay.
What we're looking for is to just make sure that they're all pretty much on the same page with what they're teaching, and maybe if there's a good strategy on how they're teaching it, that they're using that, but that when they go into their own classroom, they're still doing it their way, they're still able to do what they're doing, they're developing their plans. But for the most part, a lot of them have found that this is a great way to say, geez, why don't you work on this and develop something for this, and I'll work on this and I'll develop something for this, and then they come together and they collaborate, and it's a time saver, and it's actually helping with a lot of engagement. The other day, I was walking through the 3rd grade classrooms, and I was looking for one of the students, and they said, oh, no, she's next door, because the 2 students were actually flip-flopping, and one of them was covering one of the subjects for math, and the other one was covering the other one, so they were actually team teaching during the same block.
I do think collaboration is key, no doubt about it. The other question I had was relative to the math ANet slide. Obviously, from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade, we're seeing a decrease. Do we have, and I'm sure you're working on that, I'm sure you've recognized it, but do we have any reason for it? Are we getting to the root cause of why, as these kids are progressing from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade, that their math skills continuously decrease? That's troublesome.
First of all, the grade 3 MCAS test and ANet tests are more basic, and the kids have those foundational skills. As the foundational skills increase in difficulty, the students are having more of a challenge adapting to those changes in the higher levels. They are higher level questionings on ANet. ANet mirrors MCAS and PARC for the level of questioning, so it's teaching the kids not only the foundational skills of the standards, but it's also how to answer those questions, which in math we also use the close reading and the fluency strategies, just like they do for ELA.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Mantenio. And I guess my last, my last comment is that many of the things that you've presented tonight are spot on of what all our schools should be doing as far as making sure. I think the biggest thing is the kids understand that they're in a safe environment, that there's people there to help them, whatever needs they have, they need to be addressed. I think too often we get caught up in data and we forget about why we're here, and that is about the kids, and we have a lot of kids, sadly, who really come from very, very difficult situations. So the first thing is to make sure that you make those kids feel safe. You can't worry about a 240 until they can feel safe and that they can read and all those other things. So the fact that you start there, I was happy to hear that the IRSs or the teachers are taking the time to meet with each individual student to let them know what their MCAS score was. That's huge because it shows, again, that you care, that that score has importance, that they understand. So if they want to achieve or they see their picture on a certain threshold and they see their friends, they want to move up. I mean, all that you're doing in that whole visual, interactive piece with the students and be able to see where they are relative to their students and where they need to be. I commend you and your staff for doing something like that. And finally, the whole community buy-in or support, we'll say, for all of our students relative to this MCAS. That's huge because a lot of times we feel that the community isn't behind us, that they don't care, that they don't value education, that these kids mean nothing to them. And even if it's a small video with people holding signs, people taking the effort, making the effort to show these kids that there still are people in this community who care about them, that goes an awful long way. So thank you and to your staff for starting that. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Well, and I have to honestly say, I come up with a lot of these initiatives, and going to NISL gave me a lot of time to think and collaborate with other administrators. And then I come back to the building with these initiatives, and sometimes I get looks like, what do you want to do? And they've picked up on all of it and really run with it, and it's been great. Mm-hmm. And something else that, Michael Montigny said is when he went out to the community and he started asking the businesses, would you do this for us? Would you do this for us? He said they were thrilled to actually be asked and to be involved. So we're hoping that that's the foundation that we can build upon. He said that everywhere he went, he said he had such tremendous positive reactions. So, with that in mind, I think we just have to now really set our sights on where we want the Southbridge Public Schools to be, and then involve as many of the shareholders as we can.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Latoy.
Anybody down the side have a question, comment? Good. Dr. Page?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You made reference to attendance being an issue. Can you give us an idea of the magnitude of that problem
So our attendance rate, our daily attendance rate, I look back to last year, it was averaging 94, 95%, which isn't great. We should be up somewhere around 97, 98%. A lot of this is cultural. A lot of this is trying to get, again, families that don't have a high priority in education, a lot of the transient families, and to understand how important it is. Our attendance has dropped down to 91, 92% on some days. On half days, on early release or snow days, and even on our parent lunch days, we've seen it drop as low as 89%. And that's what I've addressed. And I put those numbers right out to the parents. And when I talked to the parents at the parent lunch about it, I said, we can't have this. And this isn't for, your students need to be here. I was getting the nods from the parents, We went from when we started doing our parent lunches at the beginning of the year, the staff is like, why do we continue to do this? It's such chaos, 80 parents are signing their kids out after the parent lunch, like it's just the school day's done and they're taking their kids home. This past parent lunch, I think we had 16 parents sign their kids out. So we're narrowing that gap and we're getting that out there. Is it a crisis in our building? No, it's not a crisis, but I want to see us get there, and I want us to be over that 95% on a regular basis. And to do that, we have to communicate to the parents, and we have to get them to understand and that the safest place and the best place for their children to be is in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latoy. I just have a real quick comment. There was a lot about reading. What about writing? Because writing activates other pathways in the brain, and I'm wondering the kids won't have the skills to be as expressive as they are, and how much of an emphasis is on writing?
So that's another major emphasis that we've done this year. The teachers can attest to that. It's another case of where through all these best practices and through all the emphasis that we're putting on things, we came and we said, we have to write. We need the writing piece as well, and this is how we want to do it. So we've introduced writing. National Geographic has a great, has some writing examples in there as well. The teachers, when they developed their unit plans prior to the Common Core, just prior to the Common Core, when they went through and developed unit planning and came up with units in there, had some great measures on that as well. Those are still being utilized. So writing is huge. What we're doing with assessing that writing is making sure that they're all doing that. So now, in order to have the student work to bring with them once a week to assess, the writing has to be taking place in the classroom so that we have those writing examples to then bring with us. So the focus is on writing. The teachers are doing a great job. They've come up with shared rubrics. They're coming up with ideas to use for that. That was another major emphasis of Union Hill when we went to Worcester, was that writing piece. And that was something we took back with us as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you all for coming. It was nice to see all of you. I have some ideas on other clinicians that I will share with you. I'll get in touch with you and share those with you. I have some contacts with the Community Health Network that do actually in-home therapy and visiting that might be of interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And now, back to the superintendent, who will introduce our next presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In preparing for this part of the agenda and working closely with Principal Earls, I realized that there was some history, I think, that we needed to address, in addition to reviewing some of the current situations around VHS. So thank you to Principal Earls for providing the information that's in your packet, but I will be presenting at this point, and Principal Earls is here for, I'm sorry, emailed. Apologies. Okay, so I will be presenting information to you, and Principal Earls is here to answer any specific questions that you have. So in researching the VHS, it's my understanding that in 2007, VHS was contracted to provide services to Southbridge Public Schools, and that was funded through the 632 grant, which provides supplemental services for academic supplemental services for students. The original contract was signed in October 2008 by Dale Hanley, and the contract automatically renews unless otherwise contacted by the district. In 2013, a portion of the cost was moved to the general fund and off of the 632 grant. In 2014, VHS was fully funded in the general fund. For fiscal year 2015, VHS was underfunded in the budget, and that has been rectified this year. And for 2016, the VHS has been fully budgeted for moving forward. So that's a little bit of the history that we have regarding VHS. Currently, we have 2 teachers teaching VHS classrooms, which allows Southbridge Public Schools to have approximately 100 student seats at a discounted rate. Currently, we have 80 Southbridge Middle High School students that have enrolled in VHS classes, with about half coming from the high school and about half coming from the middle school. Students participate in a variety of courses for a variety of reasons. Students may participate because the Southbridge Middle High School cannot offer a particular advanced placement or honor roll course, or the student's schedule may not accommodate the coursework, and so the student takes VHS to make up for that. Middle school students may take classes as an enrichment. An application process is used for all students who are considering the VHS option. Students are scheduled for and attend their VHS class in the library daily. Students receive credit for a VHS class as they would for any other elective, and access to VHS is not limited to the school day. With internet connection, students may access their class 24/7. I've already stated that there are currently 2 teachers at the Southbridge Middle High School teaching a VHS outside the school day and receiving a stipend for this work. As far as the benefits for the VHS program, the VHS program benefits our students by offering a challenging opportunity to participate in blended learning environment using collaboration and time management skills to succeed. Many of our students will engage in coursework and their post-high school in the online environment. VHS classmates and teachers are from all over the world, thus exposing our students to a variety of cultures. From a practical point of view, the students scheduled for a VHS class assist somewhat in lowering the class size elsewhere in the building. So at this point, I do know that Principal Earls had reached out to local colleagues and asked about VHS, and much of what we offer is very much in line with the other surrounding communities in terms of why we use VHS, allowing students to take advanced placement courses that we just cannot offer because we don't have the number of students who enroll in that program, or again, we have a course conflict. Not as many school districts use the VHS in our area for middle school enrichment, but that is something that we offer our students, and they do take advantage of that.
Was there any other presentation?
No, I'm sorry, that's it.
That's it? Was Ms. Earls going to speak? Or
Nope, only if we have questions.
Okay. Questions? Mrs. Congdon?
I do, thank you. Through you to the superintendent, what is the stipend that we're doing now?
I believe it's $1,500.
It's $1,500 per person, yeah, for 2 teachers.
And this is on their own time, you said? Outside of the school day?
Correct.
Do we know how many hours they spend for this course?
It varies. There might be some weeks they spend 5 hours, there might be some weeks they spend 2.5 hours, so it varies on the, whether or not there are any assessments due, so how much time they're spending correcting or interacting with the students.
Does it follow the school calendar based on the courses that they take?
It's by semester, but yes, it does.
And who goes through the applications?
We have a site coordinator.
Is that part of the 2-teacher?
No, that is in addition to the 2 teachers. Currently, and it has always been, the school librarian. And sometimes she does consult with the guidance counselors or administration.
And there's no, it's only the stipend for the 2 teachers for funding for the program. How much do we pay for the virtual high school program?
I believe it was $13,500 this year.
And that was unbudgeted?
It was budgeted at $10,000.
And $13,500 does not include the stipends?
It does not include the stipends, no.
Okay. Okay, that concludes my questioning. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Page? Yep.
Clarification question. Now, the teachers that are participating in the virtual high school program, are they developing courses that are available to any other students as well?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I thought. Okay.
So we get a discount for having our own teachers involved in the program. Our cost for our student participation is reduced because we have these teachers who are part of the course offering catalog.
Okay. And so our teachers are getting a stipend, but then our students are getting a reduced
rate.
Do you have an idea what the offset is?
I'd have to defer to Aaron.
I don't know offhand, I don't know what that is, the reduction in rate. I believe the reduction in rate is certainly more than the stipends.
Yes.
We discussed it at one point, but the reduction rate is certainly more than the stipends afford.
Okay, so that's a net gain, really, right?
It is a net gain,
Yeah,
yes,
right,
yes.
okay.
I can
I just wanted to-
definitively say it's a net gain, I just don't have the
clarify.
numbers in front of me.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Abraham?
You said that it was said that the grade is part of their official transcript. Is that correct?
That's right.
And it was also said that this is available 24/7 to a student.
Correct.
So there's really no way of knowing whether or not that particular student is answering those questions. Let's say they take an AP course and they're outside of school. Anyone could answer that in their name,
You
couldn't
have to
they?
be on an academic honor system.
So that they're
That's right.
really, but it is something that is not under the control of our local school.
It's not, you could complete your VHS work in the evenings if you so choose, but again, you're under an academic honor system. That's true.
Thank you.
Mrs. Quinney?
I think I have more comments than I have questions, as things that have been presented are new information or information that has been presented differently at other occasions. My understanding is that one person has a reduced schedule in order to teach a VHS class.
That's not true.
And so this is an additional class.
That's true.
For which they don't get a prep for.
No, they get an additional stipend for teaching this class.
And that is for both teachers.
That's right.
Both teachers receive...
One of those teachers also teaches a 6th course to our own students in school, within the building, so he's a separate situation.
Okay. And it's been stated repeatedly that students are taking AP classes. I have the list of classes here, and not one single class is an AP class. There's one honors class.
That's not true either. We have a student who's in AP Physics. As a matter of fact, that's one of the situations that the superintendent was just referring to. I think that what Ms. Blake gave us was a sample of some classes, but we do have a student who's in an AP class right now who could not fit into our own AP offering, so he was scheduled into the VHS class back in October.
Which is, again, different than what I was told previously, as I was told that student could not participate in an AP class because it required a lab, which could not be done through virtual high school. Therefore, that student was placed in an honors class, as he would not be able to achieve AP credit for that course.
I'm not sure where that came from, but I can look that up for you. I know that we have a student who's in an AP course now.
I would be very interested in seeing that. Also, what has been budgeted for next year for virtual high school?
We have budgeted $15,000 for virtual high school, assuming for possible increases. And I believe if we are stipending, those should be on the stipend list, the list of stipends that was produced, and I can check that and verify that.
15,000?
Yes.
And for the public, by having 2 teachers teach, we receive seats at the rate of $135 per seat. We are not utilizing all 100 seats. My information, which is different again tonight, was that we had 82 students participating. Tonight it's been stated that it's 80. With 1 teacher teaching, that's a rate of $150, and with the charge of $325 for each additional seat. Do we know that both teachers are planning to teach next year?
I don't know that yet. Nope.
Because we need to notify virtual high school by April 1st of either that we're continuing with it or who is teaching what, and if we do not notify them by that time, it's a charge of $3,500 in order to fill that seat, which clearly hasn't been budgeted for. 50 seats per semester. And regarding what classes are being taken that we are unable to offer, given that it's an elective? Are all our electives full?
Not all the electives are full, but some of the students choose to participate in a course that we might not necessarily be able to offer within the building.
Are all of our physical education classes full?
They're not all full, no. Many of them are, but they're not all full. I'm not sure what the question is, Ms. Quinney.
Well, we have students that are taking physical education.
They're taking
virtual high
certain
school.
kinds of physical education. Some of them are interested in certain topics, or they might not be able to take that topic during their schedule, or their schedule prohibits them from taking the topic within the school because they're overloading on other classes because they're short on credits, so they might need an extra English class, or they might need a history or English class from a different grade level, thereby precluding them from enrolling in the physical education class with their own grade level so they can take it via VHS.
Thank you. I guess that is all I have.
Anybody else?
I don't know if you got the list of the local schools.
That's
I could provide that to you now. I only have one copy, but I can share it with you. I contacted the 9 schools in Swickle, my 9 co-principals, and only one of the 9 does not currently offer VHS. Every other one does, so 8 of them do. Some of them are exploring new programs in addition to VHS for credit recovery, but 8 of the 9 are currently offering VHS. So with your permission, Madam Chair.
And I do apologize for that. I did email that last night while I was here at the town meeting. And so I'm not sure why you didn't get it, so I apologize.
I don't know if anybody, my children have had experience with virtual high school, so I don't know if anybody else has. But I find it an amazing benefit for the students. First of all, we're entering a technological age, so this is yet another way for students to utilize technology. And the way that it's set up is the librarian, the site coordinator, helps facilitate their enrollment in a course. And once that enrollment takes place, the teacher will the students log in, they have a unique password and identifier, they log in, and then the teacher at the beginning of the semester will first encourage the students to get to know one another, because the benefit of this is, for example, my daughter had a class where a teacher was in Wisconsin, but students were not only from the United States, but it's an Asian country, but I'm not sure which one, but so the teacher in Wisconsin had students in Texas, had students in New Jersey, had students in Massachusetts, had students from all over, and the students are given assignments that they have to complete, but they are also required to read their fellow classmates' responses and comment on those responses. So it's very interactive. There's actually a lot of feedback and a lot of good discussion that goes on with virtual high school. It's a challenging, they're challenging classes, but they're very rewarding. And I've seen personally a lot of growth from my daughters in their virtual high school classes. I think it's an astounding value.
And you'll see that most of the schools are offering it for enrichment. It's not a credit recovery as much as it is an enrichment opportunity. And you're right, they have to have a certain number of participation points within a discussion thread in order to get full credit. So it does have to be interactive. They can't just read their work and put forth their assignment. They have to participate in a classroom discussion in a virtual medium.
And they do have to sign off, the teachers do have them sign off on plagiarism, on academic honesty, those kinds of things. So of course, that can be taken advantage of, but I found in my own experience that it's been well worth it.
Yeah, I like to trust that the kids are pledging their academic honesty, and I like to take the kids at their word.
Yeah. And they do offer credit recovery, which is something that we could look at down the road, but. Is there anything else? Anybody else? Mrs. Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Earls. Ms. Earls, are you familiar with this April 1st deadline? Do you know, Mrs. Quinney mentioned that you were under the impression that if we don't approve this and give our number of teachers by that deadline, that if we were to change our mind later and end up having less teachers or whatever, it's going to have a negative financial consequence to the school district. So are you familiar with that?
It had happened last year too, but what they did was hold the 2 core spots, but didn't hold us to the teachers. And we didn't actually put those teachers on board until the start of this year. I'm sure Mr. Osborne's nodding, if we remember right. We put those teachers on board at the start of this year. We held the spots because VHS does understand this fluidity, and there's a level of transiency, attrition that we have to combat. So that did happen last year.
Are you I don't know.
I anticipate holding, if we're going to keep VHS, I anticipate holding the spots, and I'll hold them with the current staff member's name, but we were not held to those staff members' names this year. VHS does understand that there is attrition.
Okay, so what if there's only, you hold the 2 slots, and what if come September there's only 1 teacher?
Well, then we lose the discount on the other seats. We can still participate, but we would lose the discount on the other seats. So what happened this year is we recruited the 2nd teacher to come on board and take that spot. So we wouldn't suffer any penalty.
That's what I was kind of wondering. Do you have to recruit teachers, or do the teachers themselves apply or step forward and say, I want to do VHS?
We did recruit one of the 2 teachers. this year.
Okay, do you
Yeah.
see the need more teachers for VHS, or do you think 2 is a good number?
I think 2 is sufficient, because I think that those are the seats we're using. We are using slightly under the seats that are allocated through those 2 teachers, so I don't see the need to recruit more than 1
Okay.
at this point.
I don't know if this is for you or for Mr. Osborne. If we have 100 seats that are available and currently there's 80 that are being filled, are we paying anything for those 20 that are not filled?
I believe we are paying for the full 100 seats to have them available. So I mean, like anything you budget and sort of guess on, I mean, we plugged in a number of 15,000 this year as an estimate, presuming that we would be in a similar situation. Maybe there would be some increases. But you have to take some sort of estimate as to how many seats you're going to be able to fill and go with it. We'd love to get more students, I believe, in AP classes and things like that. And if we can add a few students, there's some value there, and it does bring down class sizes. I'm happy to explore other options.
So I'm just thinking, like, financially right now, are we taking a hit because we have 20 seats that we're paying for at, I'm guessing, $135 per seat, and there's nobody sitting in the chair? So that's money that's just going to the wind, obviously, that we could use somewhere else.
Yes.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I understand we have to budget. We have no idea what kids are going to enroll, what their interest is going to be. But in my mind, I'm trying to, I don't want to be negative Nelly, but I don't know if this, while a lot of people are for it and why this program has a lot of benefits, it also has a lot of financial implications, and that's something that we need to reconcile. And I think we're kind of forced to make that decision tonight, and I'm kind of troubled because I don't have all the right information to make that decision.
If I can say, 82 seats sounds to me like 4 classrooms full of students. I would ask myself, what would we pay annually to put a teacher in front of 4 classrooms full of students? Is that more or less than $13,000 to $15,000 a year?
In our students.
I'll let you
And if you look at the,
decide.
like Ms. McLaughlin referred to with her daughters, if you look at the courses that are available, the course catalog is just full of courses that we could never offer at a school our size and be able to afford a teacher and materials to run the classes. So is that worth the $13,500?
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to decide, and I'll take my direction from the committee.
Okay.
I also would venture a guess to say that students leave because of class choice. If we do not offer AP classes and we have students who are eligible for AP classes, again, I realize we're not filling them, but there are other classes that they may be interested in, and a Tantascwa that may have more students and more classes available may be a draw to those students. Computer programming classes, I believe, are some of the classes that are being offered, which is a next generation 21st century skill. If we're going to talk about getting kids ready to be career and college ready, computer programming, vocational computer programming, and understanding computers is the technology that our students could use desperately.
They also access a number of humanities electives, especially in the fine arts or the arts and writing. A lot of writing courses, poetry courses that are very specific in either their genre or their writing style that the students are interested in. So those are highly attractive to the kids.
Okay.
And
I think
if I may, as point of clarification, you stated that you were concerned about taking a vote.
Well, I know it's on our agenda to take an action, and where Mrs. Quinney had mentioned the April 1st deadline, that's why I wasn't sure. Do we need to decide tonight to give Ms. Earls the okay that, yes, we're going to have this for FY16? If so, how many teachers are we going to have? Are we going to lock in those 2 teachers so that in the end, we're not losing money on this by missing a deadline or having teachers drop out? Or we don't know yet, but then when we finally know, it's too late and then we're out financially. That's where I was coming from.
Thank you.
And I will say that I put that on the agenda under actions in case we needed to take action, in case that was a discussion the school committee needed to have. but that's why.
Okay, so this clarification, Ms. Stanton had mentioned during her history that this contract automatically renews itself unless VHS is told something differently. So if we don't say or do anything, then things would just
Renew.
and that's it. Okay, all right, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Did you have something to say, Chris?
I have a couple of questions, yes, through you, Madam Chair. And this is for either you or the superintendent. We currently have 80 students in this program. At the beginning of this program, or when it was first initiated, how many students, what's the growth per year?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I don't have the historical data. I only have it from this past year.
That would be good to know. That actually is a good question. That would be very good to know.
If you can give me a minute and continue, I'll see if I have some
So
of
my
that.
next question would be, all right, so roughly 20 seats unfilled. What would it take to fill those seats? I mean, in your opinion?
We want to recruit them. Again, these are higher level classes, they are challenging classes, so for us to be confident that a student's going to be successful, we want to recruit selectively, but it would take some recruiting, active recruiting.
And once again, Mr. Osborne, roughly 4 classes, 4 more teachers, what does that cost and what does that look like for us roughly?
How many classes does a typical teacher teach in 5 classes? So that would be 4/5 of their schedule. That would run us probably $48,000. Plus benefits from the town.
And so with this teachers in this VHS program, what kind of training programs are there for these teachers in order to be able to monitor these
They do go
classes?
through well, they don't monitor, they actually teach. So
Or
they're the
teach
ones
them,
who
I'm
are
sorry.
interfacing with the students. And they do go through a certification program.
I want to say one thing I forgot too is foreign language. I know that there were some students who I know of a student personally who wanted to take German, and we didn't offer German, and they were able to offer German, and the student stayed in the district to take.
German and Italian right now is also being accessed. Yeah.
Helpful. Mr. Abrahamson?
Just an observation that, based on what I've heard, it would be far cheaper to increase the virtual high school and decrease the actual high school.
Yes, please.
So in a quick review of the documentation from the high school and from the budget office, thank you, Aaron. It looks like in 2008, the program opened with 25 seats, and so it's grown to 80 over the past few years.
And I think, as Ms. McLaughlin's daughters would say, the word of mouth spreads very quickly, and students, especially our honors level students, hear from each other that it was great to take this particular course, or I got to take a theater class, and that's how enrollment has doubled, more than doubled.
The purpose for me asking that question, so from 25 seats, was that the overall seats? I mean, now we have 100 seats, so that's a big gain. And I know that in the beginning, there was issues with monitoring these classes. It seems like we have that under control now.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
all
you.
done in the library.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Agenda item number 7 is reports. Mr. Boyser's been waiting very patiently to give his report this evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 26 students in grade 10 to 12 were invited to apply for membership in the Southbridge Middle High School chapter of the National Honor Society. They will turn in their application materials on Wednesday, March 25th, and will be notified by Wednesday, April 2nd. On Wednesday, April 15th, the Thespian Honor Society and National Honor Society induction ceremony will be held in the Southbridge Middle High School auditorium at 7 p.m., with a reception in the cafeteria to follow. Light refreshments will be served. The National Honor Society will be hosting its 3rd annual spring car wash at the Uno restaurant in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. A date for the event is currently being finalized and will most likely take place at the end of April or the beginning of May. Last spring, we were able to raise $500, and we are hoping to break last year's mark at this year's event. On Thursday, May 14th, the National Honor Society will be holding its 3rd annual spaghetti shebang from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. in the Southbridge Middle High School cafeteria. This is an all-you-can-eat spaghetti supper with music and face painting. Tickets are $5 per person. In addition, a number of items will be raffled off, including a membership package from the Hanover Theater, autographed merchandise from the Boston Red Sox, and movie tickets from Cinemagic, and an apparel package from the Southbridge Middle High School store. Come enjoy yourself at this event, and then come support Dr. Garcia and the Southbridge Middle High School Band at its 7 p.m. concert. Tomorrow, March 25th, the softball and baseball program will be hosting their second annual Chili Bowl at 6 p.m. in the cafeteria. And last night, Zelma Perez was presented with the Exchange Club ACE Award to recognize her perseverance in the face of adversity. The Southbridge Middle High School is proud to congratulate her. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Sorry, Cameron, can you just repeat the date of that spaghetti dinner you were talking about?
May 14th.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the chili bowl, please.
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Next, a report of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. Dr. Page, anything to report?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. No report since the last meeting. We do have a meeting scheduled for Monday at 6 p.m. in M100 Cole Avenue.
Thank you. Negotiation and IBB, Mrs. Quinney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No report. We have a IBB meeting tomorrow and a negotiation subcommittee meeting Thursday, 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything to report on wellness? Any additional?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Policy Subcommittee, we, as I think Mrs. Donovan stated at the last meeting, found it necessary to cancel our March 4th meeting, so our next meeting is on the calendar for April 1st. That does conflict with the EHS Subcommittee meeting, so we'll just need to talk and set a date for when we want to go forward, if we want to do something that evening, later in the evening, or move it, we can discuss that. So right now, there's no date set for the next Policy Subcommittee meeting, but as soon as one is available, we post it on our website. Report of the Finance Director, Mr. Osborne.
Sure. Two small items to add to the memo that's upcoming. Just to let you know that there will be two memos probably in the next few school committee meetings. One on a copier contract. We are still looking to replace the existing fleet of copiers. Hope that is looking to be a budget neutral move to also give us some more functionality in our copier fleet. And there will also be some action on student activities accounts. I will be looking over student activities accounts with our advisor, going through and doing some cleanup work, and we'll need some votes on that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. The report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some information regarding a credit recovery program that's being developed at the high school. Thank you to Principal Earls and her team for working on creating the credit recovery program, and again, for being available to answer any questions that may arise. The high school is currently in the process of amending the 632 grant to provide for the following: 25 student seats for the after-school math credit recovery, and 16 seats for a Saturday ELA/social studies course. Each session will be supervised by a teacher, and the Saturday courses will require access to Cole Ave so that we can be flexible and have as many students attend as possible. On the Saturday courses, there will be administrative oversight at Cole Ave, and thank you to the Southbridge Middle High School administrative team for being there for that. The resources required, which again would be an amendment to the 632 grant, would be 2 sets of novels at about $350 for the ELA and history course, and instructional materials for both courses at approximately $300. So that's just information for you as we are trying to address the issues of graduation for our students and the need for some of our students to have extra time on learning and recover those credits that they have not been able to attain. Next for my report, I have some sad news in that it's budget news, but it affects our youngest students, and I am unfortunately having to announce that Governor Baker, in his FY16 budget, eliminated funding for full-day kindergarten. Full-day kindergarten is an essential part of our instructional program for our students, particularly here in Southbridge. There is no arguing the impact of this early instruction for our students. In fact, I would argue that full-day pre-K really should be on the docket for the governor, and instead we are faced with a cut to that statewide funding. So I'm encouraging the community to please contact your local state legislators to please advocate for this funding to be put back into the budget statewide. And I'm also asking the school committee here to consider also doing the same. Again, I am saddened deeply that a cut to our youngest students in a town like Southbridge that requires so much early intervention would even be a consideration for the statewide budget. And that is my report.
Oops. Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a couple questions for Ms. Stanton. Relative to the credit recovery program, when do you anticipate that beginning? Like, or what is the beginning and ending point for that?
So we've been working on the finances for that, and the amendment for the 632 takes more time. So what we have done is we've posted for the positions so that it can begin as soon as the positions can be filled. And as long as the amendment goes through, then we will be fine. But we do recognize that those courses need to start as soon as possible for students to make the recovery.
And do they need to be done and graded, so to speak, before graduation?
Welcome back.
Thank you. So DESE allows districts and schools, as Ms. Stanton and I discussed, the latitude to develop their own credit recovery. It's site-based. There's no requirement. So we've developed a program that we think is stringent, has a certain number of hours and requirements associated with it. We're hopeful that this amendment's going to be approved in the next few days, and we'll be ready to start next week.
So DESE approves it?
No. Well, DESE approves the amendment. They'll approve the amendment, yeah. And as soon as we get that approved, the amendment's been filed, so as soon as we get the approval, we anticipate approval on this amendment by the end of the week. We worked with our DESE liaison in the budget office at DESE to construct the amendment, so we don't anticipate there's going to be any issues with it. As a matter of fact, we got specific guidance from her. So as soon as we get that, we'll be able to fill these positions. Again, hopeful to start as soon as next week. The 4 Saturdays will be as determined by the staff who will teach the Saturday courses.
Okay. There's 47 students. Is there a way to, have they been notified yet that this opportunity may be?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any way to enforce that they do show up and do this? Or is there no way to really keep track of that?
Well, there's a way to keep track of it, but there's no way to enforce it. We're going to extend the opportunity. We're going to hope that graduating on time, that first Friday in June, is the motivating factor, but there's no way to make sure that they come to the sessions, either the after-school sessions for math or the English history sessions on Saturday.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Quinney, did you have?
For the teachers that are going to be teaching these, has a stipend been established?
Good question. I would have to go back and look at my notes. I'm not sure if a stipend yet has been established.
They should be paid their hourly rate.
Correct, so it's the 26.
Yeah, 26.76.
It runs again tutorials, my understanding. We have regular tutorials that run throughout the school year that are run at the hourly stipend rate, which is negotiated as part of the contract. So this would run the same way we set up a tutorial for a student who's out for extensive medical reasons or anything like that, that we have tutorials set up for. They're paid the same way.
I think one of the challenges are nomenclature. Stipend is usually used to denote a specified amount, so we're going to pay you $1,500 a semester. So when we say, I think we use stipend sometimes to also address the hourly rate. So we do create an estimate in the grant is an estimate based on the number of hours we believe that teacher is going to work or those teachers are going to work, and we come up with a number, and we colloquially will refer to that as a stipend, but it's not truly a stipend, it's an hourly rate.
Okay, we good? Anything else?
Have we established the hours?
Yes.
Could you share those with us for Saturdays?
Saturdays will be 8 to 12 on 4 Saturdays yet to be determined, again by the staff. And Tuesday, Thursday for math, after school for 1 hour, which coincides with the late bus, so the students have transportation. And there will be prep time included, and all this was described in the proposal and in the amendment to the Department of Ed.
Thank you.
Mr. Abrahamson, did you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, folks, we're at the 90-minute mark. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So for the Saturday school, will there be trans or no, because it's at
No trans, that's why we want to use CoLab, so that we can maximize attendance, as Superintendent Stanton said.
Okay. I'm actually, just one more comment, that in the recent workshop that myself and Dr. Page attended, we were walking around trying to find where the workshop was supposed to take place. And I made mention to Dr. Page how much activity was going on there for a Saturday. And there was SAT prep, there was band practice, there was a foreign language class that was going on. So it was pretty exciting to see that kind of stuff going on. I said, well, this would be great. So it's kind of good that we have something like this starting to happen. I mean, any opportunity for our children to learn is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yep. And we're at the little bit past 90-minute mark now. So decision made, are we going forward with the meeting, or are we going to suspend the meeting? I would just need a motion.
Move forward.
Can I have a motion?
Move to extend the meeting to finish the agenda.
Thank you. Second. Motion by Dr. Page, seconded by Mrs. Congdon. Is there any discussion on the motion? No. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
All yes.
Thank you. We'll continue with the agenda. We're now on agenda item number 8, school committee actions. We have budget transfers per a memorandum, March 24th. That should read 2015. 2014, just 2015. I just picked up on that. Budget transfer requests. I don't know if you want to speak to those before we...
Okay, sure. It is spring cleaning season, whether the weather agrees with us or not. There are a few items in the budget that genuinely, as we looked at the budget early on, it was very clear that they would need to be amended. I typically prefer to wait until the midway of the year before I start thinking about amending things too drastically. Mostly because you can do it in a group, and you can just make sure that nothing kind of plays out different from what you see, especially when you're inheriting a budget. There are a few items that very clearly need to be transferred. Items 1 and 6, sort of the bookends in your transfers. We've come to realize that athletic transportation was inadequately budgeted for. We've also sort of made a decision that we're not going to use the full amount in field trips this year. So we would like to transfer some money from field trips to athletic transportation. There are some realities. I think it was somewhat under budget. I think there were also some sports adopted after the budget was completed that involve travel. I mean, that's just sort of part of the game. The other item is transfer 6. It seemed to us that late buses, we started getting invoices for late buses during the year and realized that had not been budgeted for in the transportation line item. So we started thinking about, okay, how how can we find some money for this? There does seem to be some additional money in the budget line item for district social work. I believe it may be that we did put some of the social work salary onto the Title I grant, and it was, when the budget was created, it was not pulled off. So there is some money available in the district social work line item that can be reallocated to pay for late buses. So we'd like to just clear that up so that we don't continue in a negative situation on late buses. The other 4 items, even though some of them seem larger, are really somewhat housekeeping. 2 and 3 are small transfers from equipment maintenance to maintenance supplies. Equipment maintenance has been a little below what we anticipated for this year. Maintenance supplies have been a little above. So we're making a small, quick transfer that should get us through the end of the year. I've spoken with Mike Como, our maintenance supervisor, and these actually came directly from him, so I don't want to pass them off as my work. He came up with these and felt that would be a good transfer. Transfers 4 and 5 are really just housekeeping. It's moving some items to their proper line items for one reason or another. The first item, transfer 4, those are really effectively the same line item. I'm not even sure why we have 2 line items for that. And it seems like we are paying out of one but budgeted for another. It just transfers in so that squares away. It could have been a typo, it could have been any number of items. Sped transportation, it appears, I've spoken with the SPED office on both of these items, and in particular, the second item very clearly is just a misapplication of the initial budget. Those are 2 separate sorts of transportation. They have specific nomenclatures, the 032 versus the 034-10-2040. So it's just clearing up some housekeeping items on those items, however large they are. So these budget transfers come to a total of $831,779, but their net impact is 0. It's a back and forth cleanup type of activity. I certainly anticipate that there may be more of these during the years as we see things carry out towards the end of the year and we figure out some options.
Thank you. So in order to move this forward, I would need a motion that the school committee approve the multiple budget transfers in the amount of $831,779 per the attached request dated March 19th, 2015. That's what I need.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Donovan, seconded by Dr. Page. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm sorry, Mrs. Khan.
Thank you. I just had more of a comment in regards to, I know that you said the net result is 0, but, I mean, we are taking out of field trip transportation as well as social worker, which a lot of people in the school districts, and I know Charlton Street School tonight said that they can use all the help they can get in regards to a social worker. I know you said that money was moved from maybe a grant, but I just, hopefully, especially with our budget contract expiring, our transportation contract expiring, that we can kind of get on the ball in regards to transportation so we're not over budget by $55,000 in regards to transportation, and kind of look at all of these things so we're not taking field trip transportation away from the students as well as district social workers. Just a comment. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Mr. Olivo?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
All yes?
Thank you. The budget, the motion carries. Next, I place on the agenda the letter of support to continue statewide funding for full-day kindergarten. This was left on there to be a discussion, whether the committee wanted to do something individually, individually and collectively. I'm happy to prepare a joint letter that we could all sign to send to our representatives if we so desire, or...
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'll move that suggestion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Motion from Mr. Abrahamson, a second from Mrs. Congdon. Is there any discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Mr. Olivo?
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
All yes?
I'll get that prepared right away and make it available so everybody could sign it. And next was virtual high school put on there in case the school committee wanted to take any sort of action regarding virtual high school. Again, I think we've heard if we take no action, it just rolls over. Anybody? Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mrs. Donovan's point, if we do only end up having one teacher, it is a cost to the district of $3,500. So not filling that position, should that arise, is a cost. That wasn't clarified, but I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Page?
Can I, through you, Madam Chair, then, as a contingency for budgetary purposes, does it make sense to budget for that? And then hopefully that line item will come in under budget? Just in case, something that I'm just more or less posing that as the superintendent's decision, I think. But just posing that as a potential issue, or potential something to think about.
We could, the reason I went from 1350 to 15,000 was as a contingency for any changes. And so, a lot of times when you budget, you think about what's the % chance that that's going to happen, and then you budget. If you have 10 things that are budgeted on that % chance, some of them are going to hit, some of them aren't, and you're going to balance. So there is some planned contingency in there, but we could, budget further. We could next year if we found that we were needing to spend more, we could take 1,000 out of one area and put it in there if we found that was necessary. So I'm not so sure it's enormous to need to do that, but we certainly could.
It was just a thought.
Yeah, right.
And the actual cost would be $15,000 for next year, because it's $150 if we only had the one teacher, $150 per seat. So
Okay.
that would be $1,850 would be the cost.
Okay,
it'd
so
be
that would come out
$3,500.
exactly.
Right.
Well, that's good. That was kind of lucky on my part. I really just budgeted for some potential contingency.
Thank you. So no need to take any action. Thank you. Under unfinished business regarding the superintendent search, at the last school committee meeting, the committee directed me to contact 2 search firms and request they come to a school committee meeting and make public presentations. MASC has responded. They have requested April 14th, which is our next school committee date, and I know we have a budget hearing that evening, so it would be a busy evening. I have not yet heard back from ProAct. I'm going to follow up with them with a phone call tomorrow, see if we can coordinate that so that they could come, and we'll try and manage the agenda accordingly. But I just wanted to let everybody know that that's where we stand. And next, on the FY16 budget, again, this was put on the agenda to allow for discussion if there's anything overarching that we need to discuss or any updates. I know there was a town council meeting last night. I don't know if there's anything to share from that meeting, or if you just want to defer to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee next Monday, which is fine too. We're good? Okay. New business, the next regular school committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, April 14th, 2015, at 7 p.m. in council chambers. Please note that the plan is to have a public budget hearing at 6:30 p.m. prior to that meeting. And next member forum, are there any members who would like to speak this evening, just on any topics? Mr. Abrahamson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the frustrations of being on the school committee at this time in our history is that we're subject to certain laws that many people just don't understand. And in this age of social media, it's become much worse. I'm referring in particular to conditions at our schools, the school climate, that some have claimed is nearly intolerable at our middle high school. People write freely or talk about incidents that, if true, are shocking to say the least. As members of the school committee, we cannot respond to these allegations, and we can neither confirm nor refute these assertions. What is the extent of bullying? Who's bullying whom? Is it only students who are bullying and being bullied, or do we have some adult bullies at the school? Is there in effect a two-tiered system in our school system, separating the haves and the have-nots? Are our neediest students being helped, or are they being encouraged to leave? Does the behavior of some staff towards some students reflect the same negative behavior we ask our students to reject? Are some students more severely punished for identical infractions than other students? Do some students get referred to local police authorities more frequently than others? As a school committee member, Madam Chair, I simply do not know, but it's out there. That's why I'm proposing for your consideration, Madam Chair, a public forum about the climate at the Southbridge Middle High School, where people can come to state their concerns. The rules for speaking will have to be clearly defined. It's not meant to discuss individuals, but instances. I won't ask for your opinion tonight, Madam Chair, but I do ask you to give consideration to holding such a forum in the very near future. Whether people show up for such a forum will speak volumes, Madam Chair. Does the community care? One other issue, Madam Chair, is something I'd like to clarify as I see it. Over the past couple of years, there's been some discussion on the social media about the administrative structure at Southbridge Middle High School, whether it's two separate schools or one. Madam Chair, as you know, the school on Marcy Street was known as Mary E. Wells Junior High School. More recently, I don't know if it was formally changed, it was referred to as Wells Middle School. Until the new Southbridge Middle High School was built, we had a so-called middle school with grades 6 through 8 and a high school, grades 9 through 12. When the new school was designed as a middle high school, those in charge took one of the worst performing schools in the district and then yoked it with one that was performing better and put it under the same roof. Wells, it was put under the same roof as a better performing school, Southbridge High. Then they named the new structure Southbridge Middle High School. What they failed to take into account, Madam Chair, is that according to state classification system regarding school types, middle high has meaning when it comes to school accountability. The school would be considered a grade 6 through 12 structure and would be compared to all other schools with similar grade configurations. The number of principals at the school has no bearing on the state accountability system. There can be 1, 2, 22, 92. It might be a good idea to look at the structure. Maybe there are some changes that could be needed. That does not affect the accountability. Madam Chair, this became one school, and each of the two former schools absorbed each other's rating. Madam Chair, as we look around the immediate area, what Southbridge did is exactly the opposite of what other districts have been doing. Shepherd Hill, for example, is no longer a grade 7 through 12, and Webster has also been reconfiguring grades. Schools are better off with a separate 9 to 12 high school, as we once had, and they know it. Southbridge didn't. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Member Forum, anything? No, Mrs. Quinney?
Thank you. I just had some clarifications regarding the budget. I tried to get my hand up, but Mr. Abrahamson was too fast. We are having a public hearing on April 14th. We're having a meeting on Monday, the committee, budget subcommittee, and we're presenting the budget to EHS on April 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I guess my concern is we're presenting a budget that we haven't had any public input on to EHS, and that we will have had Monday, Tuesday to look over before it's presented to EHS, which is, I think, a little bit backwards, but I just wanted to make sure that that was the correct order. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, now we need a motion to enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the government's bargaining or litigation position, and the chair so declares, I do so declare, this would be to discuss potential litigation and interest-based bargaining with the Southbridge Education Association. In addition, our executive session would cover, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel and to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. And this would be regarding the Director of Finance contract, the Supervisor of Maintenance and Facilities contract, and an SEA grievance, as well as an SEA memorandum of agreement. That being said, I need a motion. Motion by Mr. Olivo, seconded by Dr. Page. Oh, Mrs. Congdon. And roll call.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Yes.
Mr. Olivo?
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
All yes?
Thank you. The school committee will return to open session as it may be necessary to take action on agenda item 13A. So, but before the school committee leaves, they want to take our video. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Southbridge School Committee meeting, March 24th, 2015. The time is 10:09 p.m. The school committee is returning from executive session. Please note the presence of all school committee members and Superintendent Stanton. Purpose of our return was regarding ratification of a memorandum of agreement. Anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Dr. Page, would you like to state? I think we need to be a little bit specific here.
Oh, I don't have the motion in front of me. Do you have it?
Without disclosing a name. You want it?
Sure, so you want me to go?
Yeah.
I move that the school committee ratify the memorandum of agreement between the school committee and the SEA as amended.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Quinney, seconded by Mr. Abrahamson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Donovan?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinney?
Yes.
Mr. Abrahamson?
Yes.
Mrs. Congdon?
Abstain?
Mr. Olivo?
Yes.
Dr. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. McLaughlin?
Yes.
All yes.
6.
6 yes, 1 abstention.
Thank you, the motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Abrahamson makes a
Second.
motion, seconded by Mrs. Congdon. She couldn't get that in fast enough. All in favor? Raise your hands. Thank you. The school committee meeting is adjourned at 10:10 p.m.